I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Ain't no party like a true challenge house party. Plus, Teck is OG of the week. Devin is truly smitten and firing from the hip because of it. They finally get to jump off of that tall building they kept showing us. A lot of deal making in the shadows, and the collapse of Era 1 continues in every conceivable way. It's the Challenge Battle of the Eras episode 7 recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future, if it's happening in the Challenge universe. We are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated Challenge Historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very much for being here with me on this Thursday, midday Thursday. I appreciate your patience. As we said last week, this episode was going to be coming out a little bit later, celebrating the anniversary last night, so I did not watch the episode live, wasn't out on the social media streets as usual, watching all the cast members' lives and reactions and things afterwards. Tried to consume both the episode and as much of that reaction as possible this morning here, this Thursday morning, and now am getting able to record. So I appreciate your patience. We've got a lot to dive into with this episode as usual. Only program reminder is that patience will be needed again next week after all. This is going to sound as crazy as it actually is, but impromptu trip to Norway for your boy here. And I don't know if I have any listeners out there in Norway. If I do, and you want to hook me up the way listeners in London and Paris did a few weeks ago with the ability to watch the show, definitely get in touch and let me know. But I do not know if I will be able to watch the show or when I will be able to watch the show next week. And I am not going to be back until the following Monday stateside. So there's a chance there's an episode next week, a podcast recap episode that is, and it comes on Thursday or Friday or Saturday or anytime after the episode. There is also a chance that we miss next week entirely. I don't want that to be the case, but it could happen. And once I get back on Monday, that feels a little late in the game to be recapping an episode and putting that out on Monday night or Tuesday morning before the next on Wednesday. I still might do it because I don't want to miss an episode. Even if, everyone is long forgotten episode 8 by that time, I still may put that out. So I'll need your patience. If not, your just, condolences if and when we possibly miss an entire episode next week. We'll see what we can do, though. Otherwise, recaps, then we'll hopefully be back to Wednesday nights after that point. No more impromptu trips coming in the near future. I don't think so, at least. I guess that's the thing about impromptu, is you don't know until it ends up happening, but we will do our very best. And then I do promise there is some additional non-eras recap content coming in November at the latest. So at least by November, we're going to have some other stuff. Got a couple ideas percolating on that front. Agenda for the evening as usual, or for the afternoon here as it is. Same as usual, walk through the episode, hand out some awards, do some predictions, and talk targets and kind of a little more alliance and some things of that nature at the end. So without further ado, episode 7, Battle of the Eras, here we go. Kicking things off with Devin's birthday party. Yes, there was some other things that happened in the opening house segment pre-daily challenge, but for the most part, we got Devin's big birthday party. I mean, we do get our OG moment of the week is Teck this week. Love, again, that they continue, and I hope they do it every episode, the whole season, to show us some clip from the past that has something to do with what we're about to see in the episode, and also gets to highlight an OG, a legend of the game that isn't there on this season. This week it is Teck. Fantastic quote from the Stratosphere jump that they did back to Open Challenge 2000. A very memorable season, very memorable moment, a great quote. All of it precluded, what they had to do jumping off the building here. So worked great. Love seeing that. Then I loved seeing Devin's birthday party. I loved seeing a proper challenge house party. When everyone in a challenge house is interested and invested in the party and having a good time and being able to somewhat put the game to the side for the evening and not, hate each other, or have the Laurel versus Cara still going on, or this person against that person. And so these people are going to stay in the bedroom and not take part. when there isn't any of that. And it's just, hey, we're all going to have a good time. We're rallying around a thing that everyone can appreciate. In this moment, everyone there is like, we can be friendly and nice to Devin. He's fun. If we're going to have a party for someone, this works. Anytime you get that in a challenge house, the party is awesome. It goes super hard, and it is super enjoyable to watch and entertaining to watch, as this one is. I do think Devin is probably the perfect person in this house, in this cast that is left right now, to actually get this camaraderie, this whole house camaraderie for the night. I think everyone pretty much likes him, even those that are working against him in the game in any way. We even see someone like Bananas. Of course, he's got to be having a good time at the party. He's got to do the cake smash, all the classic old tricks, like as Devin genuinely laughs at him at the end of like, you only do the oldest tricks in the book. Like, I can't believe that I fell for the oldest trick in the book from the guy that does all of the oldest tricks in the book. I really enjoyed that little moment from them. And I think there's others in this house that would have created this scenario too, but I honestly think Devin would be the top choice for, we're going to have a birthday party for someone. Everyone get along, everyone have a good time, everyone show out, and just great all around. Of course, Ryan and Derek getting to shine. Just fantastic stuff as the strippers for the evening. Loved every bit about that. Some real skill being shown there. I actually didn't go back and watch. I believe it's Derek that does the upside down dance on Devin. I mean, some real athleticism and skill being shown off there. Unbelievable. Jordan's quote about it, very, very fun in confessional. Kara's toast/roast was really good. I imagine there was a lot more to it, and maybe they showed us the best highlights from it, and so maybe not every joke landed as well, but from what we saw, every joke landed really good. I was like, this is actually really good, Cara. Like, damn, not that I didn't think you were capable of that, but it's a tough spot to get put in of like, does someone want to give someone that isn't Tori or Michele, the two closest people to Devin, want to give a toast and make some jokes and kind of, do the whole thing. Very, very good stuff from Cara, who I apologize. I forget. I did not write down what her character, her ego for the evening, the name. So we're going with just Cara. I think it was like Carl or something of that nature. But yeah, Cara was great. Derek and Ryan was great. The whole party was great, that everyone was involved and everyone was having a good time. Again, challenge parties are the best parties, the best looking parties. Obviously, I've never attended one in a challenge house, but from when everyone's invested, they're as good as anything gets. And again, otherwise, outside of this party, we get some brief strategy talk, Nehemiah and Rachel, Bananas versus Ryan. We get the setup of that we'll get the more of later in the episode. And we get the true setup then, the Nehemiah and Naya highlight, hey, they're really tight, brother-sister like relationship. We set that up, which kind of gives us a pretty obvious tip that Naya might be put in a particularly difficult spot here. Then we go to the daily challenge, and we finally get to jump off of that building, as we both knew they were going to do because it was in all the trailers, but also they kept, alluding to the building in different ways all the way up to Brad and Derek. I think that was last episode, looking at that thing, and Darrell continuing to have him. I'm sure some of those confessionals we saw the last couple episodes about him being scared of heights and that being the one thing, he doesn't want to do. Please don't make him do it. Those might have come even from this episode, after they actually did it. Who knows? That stuff's always a little confessional chicanery always going on. But we knew this was coming, and I just assumed, because the part we see in the trailer is they got to run off and jump and grab the things. And I think, hey, there's been plenty of challenges in the past that are just are you willing to jump off the thing and grab something or whatnot? And it's very straightforward. It's very simple. And I thought that's all it was going to be, which would have been fine. But the thing I think is typically missing with those is like, it's a little too simple. I have fond memories of things like back on Rivals 1, I think there's the opening challenge, maybe the second challenge they have to do was just the run and jump off into the gorge. And it was how many of the little ribbons you cleared. And, Adam and CT clear all of them by a mile and get their first win and kind of kick off that storyline. And that's memorable and cool, but because of the people and who won, not so much because like the challenge that literally takes each person 3 seconds to do was that cool. And so this one, the hot streak continues. They continue to just crush it with the dailies and the eliminations. We'll talk about that later, but the daily challenges, like this one, I just loved it so much. Adapting the jump off something scary into a full team event with multiple steps to it, with way beyond just jumping off, but jumping off, lift the people back up, run the pieces over, and then someone put together the puzzle, like making it into a true team thing in a cohesive way and making it into a multi-step thing with some, the pulling up in the puzzle being much more important than the just like, if you don't do it, it's kind of a pass fail first section of like, if you don't do it, then it's a huge penalty. Otherwise, it's basically just pass. If you do it, you get it. Great. And then everything else is what matters. So love, love, love everything. The only reason I say not 100% is it does feel like we continue to have these challenges where Era 1 having less people is a disadvantage. Only slight here, very, very slight disadvantage. They make up for it by it being a random draw. If this was you get to pick who does what, I think it's the slight disadvantage is there even more that someone has to do both parts of this for them, but at least that the other teams don't get to pick who is doing the puzzle, or if they can't, sit out these scaredy cats of the group. And I say that politely. I'd be terrified to do this, obviously. It closes that gap, but it still is like a little bit of a slight disadvantage. It's been a disadvantage in the past, and it definitely next week looks to be a massive disadvantage. And I think on a team season, the best thing to do, the producers, obviously, whatever they come up with is putting their hands on the scale in some way or some fashion. And so I'm always on the team of try to make it as fair as possible and try to bring about as much parity as possible. And so in a team setting, if there is going to be any advantage built into either having more or less people, I want the less people to have a little bit more advantage to try to then put the teams with more people in the position to lose and keep things as even as possible all the way through. And so, that balance was just a tiny bit off here, but otherwise just absolutely nailed it again. Loved this challenge. Going first was a huge disadvantage, and I always enjoy when that comes back if they properly rotate or find a way to decide who has to go first in a fair-ish manner. And going first here was a huge thing for Era 4. There was clearly a way to pull the people up that worked much better, and that each team successfully watching the others got a little bit better and a little bit better at. And Era 4 had people out there that should have no problem pulling these people up. But they did. They had a huge problem, and it obviously cost them. Big shout outs to Aviv, that I'm glad they made it clear, hey, we don't adjust the heights of these things. It is way easier for a tall person. It is way harder for someone that is shorter. And if you haven't noticed, Aviv is, as she says, 5 foot flat. It is a much bigger jump, a much way more needed than it is for Naya on the other end of the height spectrum for the women. It is still difficult. It is still scary as hell, but it is very easy once you get over the fear part for Naya to just reach up and grab something versus Aviv. So shout out to her, and huge shout out obviously to Darrell. We know the history. We get flashbacks to a bunch of the history here, and we know that he is not only just been scared at it in the past, but the last couple times we've seen him in this position, he's flat out just been like, nah, I don't need to do it. Whatever. I'll go to elimination. I'll let my team down. I'll let myself down, my partner, whatever. I'm not doing it. And so for him in this moment to not do that again and be able to say, I'll do it. I'm not going to let my team down like that. And then to get both of the flags that he needed to get. Absolutely incredible stuff from him. And final shout out, Corey and Avery, the winning puzzle team. Their team won. They got that Tangram puzzle done just as fast as anyone else, essentially. Probably not Derek. It looked like Derek actually did do that in 3 seconds. So not as fast, but fast enough to maintain and solidify their lead and their win. And I don't think either of those two are thought of as puzzle masters by any means. And so big confidence booster to be able to have them get a winning puzzle. Breaking the next portion, the house, the nominations, all of that up into 2 spots here, because before we talk nominations and alliance, I want to quickly talk about the incredible backstory that we get from 2 people here, Michele and Tina, and just about the fact that we get these little moments and segments in general and how much of a benefit I think it is to the show that sometimes can be missing. And I'm so glad that they were able to highlight both of them here. I know essentially every episode, they telegraph to some degree who's going into the elimination, and by the time we know, they definitely give us plenty of time with the two people going in and try to get whatever the story arc of each cast member is for that season. They try to have a little bit of a wrap up or give you a little bit more about them. Usually, we get the Zoom call home or anything of that nature. So I'm not saying we never get something like, hey, Michele and Tina are both going in, let's hear a little bit why this game or this season matters to them. We do, but I feel like sometimes it can be pretty surface level, a little bit depending on what the cast member wants to give in said moment, a little bit depending on what there is to give, and a little bit depending on what the editors and the producers decide to show or feel like they have room to show or time to show. And so in this one, we get both Michele telling, given the backstory of her brother's accident and the brain damage that occurred, and that being on this show, the thing that matters the most to her is that being on this gives her family and her brother time to sit down together and watch her on the show, and how much those moments, those nights watching her on the show, and how happy everyone is and getting to do it as a family and everything, how much her brother enjoys it, how much that means to her. And so that for her, as much as anything else, it is really about like, the longer I'm here, the more Wednesday nights I get to do that with my brother and with my family. And that means so much to us. And that was just so beautiful to hear and see. And so, really connects you. If you're someone like myself, who Michele's maybe my favorite female cast member right now, connects you even more. But if you're someone who's like, I'm not super interested in Michele, I don't think she's a good cast member, I think even someone like that puts their guard down a little bit and is like, damn, that really humanizes, and I really is really touched by that, or heartwarming, and I really like that. Same thing over on Tina's side. We get the, I don't remember if I think she's referenced it a time or two in confessional, and those OG challenge fans or big Tina fans would have put together that she has some Vietnamese heritage, and so that's pretty cool that she's doing this season in Vietnam. But I don't think we had much more than a reference to it this season, certainly not an in-depth confessional and discussion of it like we do here, of her heritage, and being able to feel by doing this season in Vietnam connected to her heritage, to her mom's story, to her mom herself, and everything about that, and how beautiful it was. And her, again, wanting the more time here, the more I can feel that connection, the more opportunities that would give after the fact to continue talking about this season and things that happened, and therefore getting to talk about being in Vietnam or seeing different parts of it, as they are traveling a good bit for a lot of these daily challenges. And it was really wonderful as well. So all that is to say, I know it's hard to find time to fit those things in, and I know they do, most episodes try to give us something of this nature, and sometimes, again, the cast isn't giving it, or it isn't an obvious shoe-in like this one here, of like, it's very obvious we should let Tina talk about what it means to her to be doing a season in Vietnam. That's a pretty easy for the producers to know, like, for either Tina to bring it up to them and be like, I want to talk about this, or for them to ask directly about it. I get all that. But these moments are really important, especially for a show where the players return season after season after season, and you feel like we probably should know them really, really well, and sometimes we don't. And so just wanted to highlight both that these moments were incredible, that admittedly, these are probably my two favorite cast members on the female side of this entire season. I think that's probably true. I didn't think about that till right now, but yeah, I probably would say that is true. And so I loved every bit of it, but I also think it's very important to the show, and it's very great when they can do such a wonderful job in highlighting these moments. Back to the gameplay, though, let's talk about the nomination and the kind of alliances that are being shown through all of this. So Jordan and Naya pick Tina and Darrell. There's some back and forth. There is either some real heavy emotion from Naya and Jordan, or some potentially really good acting. I think Naya's is fully real. I think Jordan in the chamber, the kind of like getting teary-eyed, choked up at the end, saying goodbye to everyone. I don't know. He is someone who more than dabbles in the acting world. And so maybe he was just, have both felt those things, but like, why don't I kick it up a notch? Just test myself. Could I produce some tears right here on command? Let's see. I think there might be a little of that going on. And I'm all for it, by the way. That is not negative in any way, but they pick Tina and Darrell to go in. They save Nehemiah and Aviv. And I have no idea why. I mean, obviously, we get the answer is Nehemiah and Naya's relationship, and that's all good. Zero questions about them two actually being very close off of the show and wanting to protect each other in the show, and in them, even if they weren't close, being in an alliance with each other on this particular season where they fall on their own teams and within the greater cast. That connection makes perfect 100% sense to me, but it does not outweigh the rest of the equation for me that screams put in era 2 and save era 1, because Nehemiah and Aviv are both better competitors right now than Darrell and Tina. Nehemiah, I think, is a little underrated these days after his performances on All Stars, and people not realizing that he might be a lot better than we maybe had thought he was in the past, or that a lot of people maybe think he is right now. But especially given Darrell with the back injury that was still very much there, and just being in this season, I think Nehemiah is the better player, the better competitor, the more of a threat to the people in power or to everyone else on the season. And I think Aviv is the better competitor, the bigger threat to over Tina in a final, maybe not in the whole house, because Aviv has, the no connections and the very lacking any experience really in the political social game. And Tina has a lot of that covered, and as we've seen, is in great shape and is a solid competitor, but I still probably pick Aviv and Nehemiah both. And so if you're thinking just get the best possible people out, well, then I'm putting Nehemiah and Aviv in there and being okay with whoever goes home between the 4 people down in the sand. And more so than anything else, it's just that Era 1 is of no consequence anymore. Everyone there should be like, let's save Era 1. Let's be Era 1's first friend in the game. Let's give them their first break. They're not winning anything, so they can't really pay it back, probably. But they're not going to win anything in the end, so we shouldn't be concerned about them. Now, if this was Rachel down there and not Tina, and Naya was like, hey, I don't want to run a final against Rachel, and so not going to let her get any grip on this game. I know they're down, but we're going to kick them while they're down. We're going to try to get her out of here. I would understand if it was Rachel, and because she's in that top threat level of the game, but respectfully, Tina is not, and I don't think Darrell is right now. And so I would be all in if I was anyone else on like Era 1 is not a consideration right now, because they're not a consideration in the game until they prove that they can be again, which I don't think they're going to. So I don't know why they're not thrown in number 2. I think there's a lot of deals that we don't know about or can't confirm. And I think, if I would speculate, the biggest one is Jordan. Jordan has a lot of them, but I think in particular, Jordan and Bananas have much more of a undisclosed agreement going on than anyone thinks. I mean, Jordan probably has the most connections and deals. Era 3, just in general, between Devin, Tori, and Jordan are the most like, I kind of have a deal with, half of each of these teams going here. And it's just, we're really waiting through how do we not, break any of those? How can we go as long in the game without breaking any of those? But Jordan in particular seems to, not only was it a couple weeks ago, we're going to defer to Laurel and we're going to kind of keep her safe. But Bananas was there too. And I think that decision might've been as much about Bananas and Laurel at the time that we didn't realize. And this one might be as much about, I'm kind of have a little bit of loyalty to Bananas here, and I have a little bit more of an Era 2, Era 3 thing behind the scenes, and I just want to keep that going. I feel good about my team. I feel good about running the final together, and I think this was Jordan being able to use you're not going to throw in Nehemiah, so that's great. Like, let's not throw them in. That's perfect. Like, throw in Era 1. Doesn't matter. And I think in a different circumstance, Jordan, the ultimate competitor, would be like, this makes no sense to throw in Era 1. It's not going to actually help us in anything. I think it actually is helping them a lot. And I think it's because there might be a much more of a specifically Jordan and Bananas. We'll see if we ever get any confirmation of me being right or wrong or somewhere in between on that. But speaking of Bananas, him and Ryan is the last part of this. While, it won't come to full fruition maybe until episodes future, we get the first outbursts from Bananas towards Ryan for being just skating through the game, being the one that has never been nominated. Is he the last? He and Casey, but Casey went in the original time and won the first elimination, right? I already forget. There were so many eliminations to start the season off. I already forget. No, that was Olivia Nerys, right? Yeah. Anyways, there's only a few that haven't been put up, and Ryan has not on his team. Bananas isn't having it. And Ryan and Derek have every right to be thrilled that they are always safe and have flipped the game on those who typically get their way in being always safe, which would be like the Laurels and Bananas of the world, as they say. Now, this was true when Ryan and Derek played the game with Bananas and Laurel in the 20s of the season, the third era of the challenge. On a lot of those seasons, Bananas and Laurel skated while Ryan and Derek did not. And so I get that is their perspective. To be fair to Bananas, the moment Ryan and Derek weren't around anymore and Bananas kept doing season and season and season, the house eventually did turn on him in a big way, and he no longer got to skate through for a lot of seasons in a row. And then recently he came back and got to skate through a season or two again. It's been an up and down, long 20 some seasons that man has done, but totally understand Ryan and Derek's perspective, and also clearly understand they're like, sorry for having a lot of friends and good alliances, but I'm not going to throw myself into elimination. Obviously that is the smart thing to do and the right thing to do. But on the other side of it, it's still true that I think what Bananas is doing here is very smart. And I think he continues to put on a classic, just veteran masterclass of how to maneuver in the house in the position that he is in. And he is in his position because of who he is and everything he has done in the game and everything he has done to other people within the game. But he sees the situation very clearly. There is nothing that is going to damage him in any way about doing this. There is no one who is going to dislike him or get mad at him or move them up their target list further than where they already have him, because he is calling bullshit on Ryan skating through and not helping the team in the dailies and just getting to kind of be around for a free ride because he's got friends. No one is suddenly going to be like, you know what? Bananas was like kind of the one I liked the most on that team, but I don't like him calling out Ryan, so now he's moving down. Or I thought he was a great guy, now I think he's a douche, and now I don't like him. I don't want to help him be him. None of that's going to happen. Wherever he's at with anyone, he's not going lower because of this. And so there is no risk for him doing this. There is only potential reward. Now, that reward might not happen, but it is at least potential. He does this loudly. He does it publicly, as he says. He wants it to be very public to make sure everyone knows this is the situation, and he is getting a bit of a free ride here. And there's only gains for him to be made. They might not be made. It's kind of a long shot even that he makes any headway or gains because of this in the game, but he could, and there's no downside. And so there's no reason for him not to do it and not to share these feelings and not to do it in a way that is public and potentially strategically helps him a little tiny bit. And the last little part of it is he ropes Nehemiah in for the first time, which is smart. He makes sure to say, Nehemiah, looks like, because those two are just going to skate through and no one's ever going to say their name. It's just me and you back and forth until we both lose or one of us loses. It's just going to be us. So he's roping in Nehemiah, who has not been playing the game with him or not had, any kind of solid foundation within Era 2, roping him in, seeing if maybe I can add you to me and Laurel's side of things within this team, and we can maybe flip the numbers a little bit here within our team. Then finally we head to the arena, and it is an unbelievably good game design again. I mean, this is right now, if they ended the season, this would go down maybe as the best mix of dailies and eliminations that I've ever seen, the best design of them, even with, I know, the controversy of a couple of them, couple recent ones of them, but just what the games are, what is required out of them, the whole thing. I love everything they're doing. And I really, really, really love this design and this elimination. It takes just enough athleticism to be advantageous if you're in really good shape. It's definitely a little bit of an advantage. If you can fling those poles around, fling those doors open, and move quickly, you can gain a few seconds here. Math, but not too hard of math, pretty simplistic math, but also you had to do that math under super difficult pressure and continuous as you go through a thing, which makes it much more difficult and turns it into more who has memory and who has poise than anything else. You kind of got to be able to, it's a pass fail. Are you athletically going to do this in somewhat of a decent time? Great. Can you do simple math? Great. If you can check both those, done. All four competitors here do. It just comes down to then pressure, poise, and, staying calm and having a good memory, essentially. And also, it looks pretty cool. And we get the good visual of the oh, they're getting through faster. Oh, they're at the end. Are they going to win? Oh, they got to go back. And now the other person might win. It is actually visually appealing and good for a television show. So, A+ on this elimination. Love it. Michele versus Tina. To back up a little, because we skipped over some things here. Michelle's calm demeanor, how she handles Tina's obvious attempts to rattle her prior to back in the house, saying that she's going to beat her. Michele confidently saying back, you're not going to wipe the floor with me like you think you are. What is going on right now? Just a lot of growth shown from Michele, how calm she is staying in those moments. Tina, on the other hand, has her outbursts within the house, and they're fully justified and they're fun. And so I'm always going to be good with that combination. If it's justified to some degree, maybe they're not, maybe they're mildly justified here. But I think, again, I would agree with her that they have no business throwing Arrow 1 in. It makes not much any sense to them. So justified and fun, always going to be okay with that. Decent performance by both. Not great, decent. Both do mess up the equation on the first run through, but Michele gets it done. I'm thrilled. I'm heartbroken as well, because as I said before, I think these are probably my two favorites on the female side of this season. And losing Tina is a huge loss. Losing Tina's confessionals is a big, big, big loss for the season. But I'm thrilled to see my girl Michele get another W and go back into the game. Darrell and Kyland then. Kyland, super confident in the chamber, being willing to say, I don't care who it is, I'm going to beat them. I am going to come back. Always ballsy to make claims like that, but he backs it up here. Darrell, in the game itself, going to the sand makes no sense. It doesn't really make sense. I know he laments it immediately afterwards, this wasn't that hard. Why was I trying to do it to check? Do it in your head and try it. Because it makes no sense to spend that time to go down and to clear the sand and the whole thing. I did see some people out there, saying maybe he was okay with losing or wanted to lose because his back was that bad. I did watch bits of the little exit interview he did talking about his back was in a real bad way, but I do not believe anything. This was not him giving anything short of 100%. His emotions after losing and in his exit interview and, after the episode were very clearly real and raw, and someone that was not happy how this season went down and really, really wanted it to go down much differently. So don't believe any of that. I believe Kylan just got him. He had that poise. He had that good memory, and he nailed the math immediately and put in the number immediately. He was the only one that wasn't rattled by the, which I thought was a genius design by them of it's all just addition all the way through. Everyone feels, pretty confident as they come out of the last glass of I know the combination. And then they walk over and they flip the thing over and it says, multiply it by 2. And in general, you just say, hey, take a number, multiply it by 2. Pretty straightforward and easy, but designed perfectly. That is going to rattle you in that pressure moment. You're wait a minute, I got here first. I'm just about to put the lock in. Wait, I got to do more math. Shit. Am I confident in my number? Now I got to multiply that by 2. It can rattle you, and it rattles 3 of the 4 people. It does clearly shake up Michele and Tina, who have to rethink and go back. It clearly makes Darrell think for a second and decide, you know what, I got to make sure I get this right. Let's go to the sand, do it in the sand. And Kylan is the only one who's easy. This times this, great, done. Here's the number, and I won. So shout out to him. Incredible performance. 6-2 in eliminations now. One of those losses being a pairs loss. The other being to Queen Nerys, obviously on last season when Nerys beat him and Horacio. But he's putting up numbers, and I think he's just a fantastic cast member, and he has been crushing it both on 39 and this one, and has been everything we could have asked for, bringing another new CBS person over, as one of the main ones. Really, that is the only one that came straight from like USA into MTV pipeline. Has absolutely been crushing it. Couldn't love having Kyland around more. Quote of the week, then. We've got Teck here. Money is the greatest motivator. Money and sex, end quote. Loved that again, starting the episode with him. Jordan, quote, I've never had a bachelor party, but let me tell you, I'm going to need the number for that stripper service. I will be repeating my services, end quote. Really, really great, obviously, from probably the moment of the episode. And then Derek, quote, what an incredible reference this was. For those younger ones, you might not have understood this reference or why it was so incredible. But Derek, quote, Darrell is going to beat the calculator, and we're going to nickname Darrell TI-82. For those that are too young to understand, or maybe just don't remember, if you are around, us millennial aged folks, don't remember back in grade school and high school, calculators, TI-82 is a brand of calculator. It was one of the first ones that kind of, I think when I was, Derek's a few years older than me. I think I was like TI-90 something there, a few models later, but was the much more advanced calculator that we weren't allowed to use until calculus class. And sometimes you weren't allowed to use it on the test, but it was just much better than your simplistic calculator that we had up through, until the TIs came around. So that's a little history lesson for you, for non-millennials out there, for the younger folks. But that reference was incredible. Great pull from him. Amazing quote. I'm still going to give the quote of the week, though, to Jordan, because I really enjoyed that in the moment it was tied to. Speaking of best moment, Teck getting the opening. All parts of Devin's party. The strippers, Cara, Tori and Michele at the end saying, let's make Devin a Jersey boy. I really enjoyed that little tag on at the end that they put. So everything to do with Devin's party. Darrell getting the 2 flags, overcoming that, all the history that was behind that. Jordan, Nehemiah, Corey, and Darrell playing pool and talking shit at the club. I didn't talk about that before, but that was definitely my favorite moment of the episode. Just the 4 of them shooting the shit, kind of talking shit to each other. Like, it was strategic in the game, but you could tell it was mostly just like 4 dudes actually just having fun and kind of like being dudes playing pool together. Loved everything about that. And then Bananas versus Ryan and Derek to some degree as well. But Devin's party and everything to do with it is the moment of the episode. And the MVP, Rachel, gets some votes, very present in this episode. There's only, really only her left in Era 1 by the end of the episode, with Tina and Darrell leaving. With respect to Derek, who's on one leg here, I don't know that he's long for the game, so it's kind of just Rachel in Era 1, but she's getting a lot of screen time because of it, deservedly so, and so she was very present, gets some votes. Naya gets some votes. Kyland, of course, very present, gets some votes. Michele. But I'm going a little surprise pick. I think Devin is the MVP of this episode. It is his party after all. And so he's very, a part of that, and confessionals about that. He's very much a part of the eliminations, pacing around, talking about watching Michele. And I think he might have had as many confessionals almost as anyone this episode. I was not keeping count, and just felt very present. Was there entertained as usual every time he was on the screen. I'm giving the MVP to Devin. Finally, let's talk targets in next week with some predictions. The targets are Derek, Rachel, Cara, Derek, Corey, Avery, Jenny, and Theo. And first, I do want to point out, I saw the clip that Challenge Mania put out with Scott and Derek discussing, is it fair that Era 4 always gets to go last here? Or do they actually, or is it just what we're seeing? Do they actually get to always go last and decide, nominate, or pick someone? I didn't actually watch the clip or listen to their podcast if Derek says or not if that was the case, but I assume that is the case, that Era 4 is currently getting to always pick the targets last. And that is a huge advantage as far as like, are you going to nominate or not? You kind of get to see your competition. So putting that out there. But of all these picks, again, Derek, Rachel, Cara, Derek, Corey, Avery, Jenny, Theo, a bunch are nominated themselves. Only a couple are actual choices that are ruffling feathers. The one I disagree with the most, by far, is Kyland picking Jenny. I am so confused at this one. I don't get why it's not Olivia. it's very easy to pick Olivia. Olivia was very much against you last season, Kyland. And on your team, you are the bottom of everyone's pecking order on your team, essentially, right now. I think Theo is definitely above you for Olivia, and I think honestly for your whole team because of that. So why not her? Why not Casey? These people are not defending you on your team. And I think Jenny would. You could say, Jenny, we're both kind of on the bottom of the team, and I think we're our team's best players. Let's ride together on this. Let's try to make sure, let's, stand up for each other and kind of fight from the bottom here, maybe make our own alliances with other teams outside of what our team has. Like, they're defending Josh over you 100%, and I think they're defending Theo over you because of the Olivia connection. So you're on the bottom. Why are you picking on the other person on the bottom who is your team's best player and can help keep you safe every time you end up being the target as well? So doesn't make sense to me at all. I think that's just clearly should be Olivia and should have been fairly straightforward and easy for him to do. And then Michele picking Derek over Ryan because her and Ryan are birthday twins seems like a little bit silly. It seems easiest to just say like if you're going with the I'm not picking bananas and I am going to pick either Derek or Ryan here, to just say like, Ryan, I love you, but like I'm not picking bananas, and between you and Derek, you haven't done it, so like I'll go with you. Seems easy. Seems like it wouldn't upset anyone. Seems like it wouldn't cause any issues for her game, her team, anything of that nature. But that's a minor squabble. I don't think this is going to cause any issues for her anyways. And then the Devin portion, Devin not nominating to Corey's chagrin, and of course Michele not picking him then and picking Corey. I don't think Devin is thinking long game. I don't think Devin is concerned with I need to win this season. If it would happen, it happens. But I believe him when he says, I'm just thinking about being here as many weeks as possible to spend as much time as possible with Michele. And behind the scenes, they don't get to say it on the episode. They're like, the more weeks I'm here, the more paychecks I get. And I'm going for that. If I'm not too concerned about actually winning, I'm just concerned with how many weeks can I be here. I think that is his mindset. I think he actually is firing from the hip and just kind of having a good time, trying to make some good TV, trying to build a good relationship. And so I get his move, not doing it and be like, sorry, dude, like too bad. And, him and Corey have not exactly worked in tandem at a lot of points in the past. And so they, again, don't do so here. But we've got to make some predictions because we got a lot that is going to go down next week. And I think the main thing that's going to go down is Era 1 is going to continue to dwindle to the point of potentially not being here any longer, because we see in the next week on, we get the Riot Shield daily challenge, which for those who have never watched Cutthroat and who have never seen this, be prepared. You are about to see maybe the most brutal thing the challenge has ever put on our screens happen. And the terrible part about it is that Derek was the champion warrior when they did it back on Cutthroat in losing effort, but in against all odds, just fighting the good fight, and was clearly like the guy to do this challenge. And now he's got to do it again, all odds against him, but he also has like a torn knee. So that's super duper shitty, but there is just no way Era 1 doesn't lose. Whatever way they make this fair for 2 people versus 7 or whatever the most team has, Derek's on one leg. This is a no-brainer. Era 1 is losing again. Okay. It's just going to happen unless they shake up the teams, but I don't think they're doing that. Maybe they put 2 teams together. I don't know. But I just don't see any way. Like, Derek is the only man on their team. There's going to be men's rounds, and he has 0 chance of winning those. And so they're getting last. I will predict, I had a shitty prediction. I think multiple people are going to get hurt. I don't know how people don't get hurt doing this. Again, it's going to be, if you haven't seen Cutthroat, it's going to be the gnarliest thing you've probably seen in challenge history. Even much more so, even honestly, than a hall brawl, as gnarly as those can be. If Laurel tries, and there's any sort of last person standing element to this, then Era 2 should win just off of, I think Laurel can just win the women's side on her own. And then I guess if it was a last person standing, it was like, who's the male, who's the female? If it's from 2 different teams, they flip a coin and see, I don't know. But if Laurel tries, her team should have a damn good shot to win, because Rachel could definitely get her in this, and Jenny, I guess, could, but I think Laurel's just a lot taller than Jenny. I don't know. And Laurel has dominated this once before on Cutthroat, and I think she could again here. But overall, from a team perspective, I don't see how Era 4 doesn't just completely dominate and kick everyone's ass in this. All of their people are bigger, physical, probably down to do this and actually get physical and dirty, and they have the most people. And so I think Era 4 wins. I think Era 1 loses, which means either 2 or 3 matches up with 1. And I think it's Jenny and Theo that I'm predicting here win, who are not in lockstep with the 3-4 alliance. And I think would probably buck that trend. So I think they would throw Era 3 in. And if that is the case, then I would say Rachel beats it's Avery. Yeah, Rachel against Avery. So I would take Rachel in that. And then I guess I would take Corey because again, one, I don't know if there is going to be a men's elimination. I feel like Derek is super injured and they're about to do the gnarliest, most physical challenge possible. I don't know how we don't come out of that with like Derek being like either I'll hobble my way through an elimination, but like I'm not going to be able to win it, or they're just being Derek, you got to go home and this sucks, but there's no men's elimination. So I think one way or the other, I think Derek's going home and I think Rachel is winning. If I had to guess, I think they're going to go against Era 3 because Era 4 wins and Jenny and Theo want to buck their team's alliances. And so that's the predictions we'll stick with. 2 weeks ago, I nailed every prediction. Last week, I nailed 0 predictions. So seems like another week to get 100% right. Maybe we'll just flip back and forth. We'll see next week for episode 8. And with episode 8, we're definitely at least at or past the halfway points. We'll do a little, maybe if we miss next week's episode because I'm not able to watch it until, Sunday or Monday after it airs, maybe we'll just do like a mid-season check-in on that Monday or Tuesday, a kind of second half of the season preview, if you will. Maybe that'll be the answer. One way or the other, we'll get you some sort of content, but again, it just won't be Wednesday night. Probably won't even be Thursday. It'll be at some point over the weekend at best next week. And then we'll be back to our Wednesday nights for episode 9 through hopefully, fingers crossed, the rest of the season. Love and appreciate every one of you. Again, if you have questions, comments, anything you want to chat about, DMs are open at Challenge Historian on Instagram. Comments are open on YouTube, of course. Thank you for being here. Hit the subscribe button, and I will talk to you sometime next week. Peace.